Well, hello, NETA pastors. There certainly is a lot going on in our nation right now, and there are a lot of voices competing for our attention, trying to convince us of what we should be most concerned about in these days. News media and social media sources all are filled with messages trying to convince us that we should be most concerned about the political threats posed to us by the extreme political right or the extreme political left. These messages stoke our fears and our anger, and if we aren't careful, these messages will distract us as followers of Jesus from what should be our primary concern. See, our primary concern should be the character and witness of Christ's church. Already, the evangelical church is often viewed by the surrounding culture more in political terms than in religious terms. So when a mob attacks the Capitol, holding crosses, carrying Christian flags, waving banners stating Jesus saves, culminating with profane men praying in the Senate chamber in Jesus' name to bless their actions, you can see why the distinction between cultural Christianity and true Christianity is that much harder to discern in our nation. My guess and my hope is that few in our churches are caught up in the extremes of the political right or the political left. But many in our churches, while not being part of the extreme, are caught up in the general political distraction of our day. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, the Apostle Paul tells Timothy to think of himself and his gospel mission in terms of being a soldier who doesn't get tied up in civilian affairs. We need to listen to those words right now in terms of not getting tied up in earthly politics. Trevin Wax wrote an article that was posted today on the Gospel Coalition titled Dethrone Politics. And in this article, Wax makes a few observations, and I'm going to read a lengthy quote to you. He says, at the fundamental level of orienting and ordering their lives, for many people, political convictions have replaced religious belief. Politics has a stronger and wider effect than religion does. It's not surprising then when we see an uptick in disunity in churches across the country, particularly in congregations that feature a variety of political viewpoints. When partisan identity becomes all-encompassing, it's understandable why some in our churches get along better with people who may not believe in or worship the same God, or whose religious practices and beliefs differ substantially than they do with their fellow saints who vote differently, yet recite the same confession of faith and share the meal Jesus gave us. It's also not surprising when many of the loudest and most energy-consuming debates in various denominations are related to political choices and public policies, rather than the main message and mission that should be at the forefront of conversation. The Great Commission gets sidelined, whether in mainline denominations that become errand boys for the political left, or in conservative denominations that become cultural warriors useful to the political right. I think Trevin Wax's observations are spot on and should lead us to some self-examination. I also think that in this season, God is creating some opportunities for which we should be grateful. First of all, I think God is giving us an opportunity in this volatile political season for us to have revealed where our trust really lies. Now, as evangelical Christians who believe that there is no one righteous, who believe that we are all sinners in need of mercy and grace, we should not be surprised that we all have misplaced trust, misplaced loyalties, even ones that we're blind to. I think right now there's a general revealing that is taking place where people's functional trust is being revealed on what we truly are putting our hopes in, our trust for security and for peace. And for many, politics really holds a key place in their heart. And that is being revealed in this season. And so we should be open to self-examination during this time. Where does our trust truly lie? Also, I think during this time, there's an opportunity for the church's character to be refined. Jesus said of the church, you are the salt of the earth, you are the light of the world. And he warned the church about losing its saltiness. Now, our salt and light, it's Jesus talking about our distinct message, distinct character, and distinct deeds. That we are to be distinct from the surrounding world, yet useful and beneficial to the surrounding world. Jesus intends that his church would be characterized by love and grace and truth. Now, the distinct character of the church, I believe, is far more important than we often give credit to. I believe that the loss of Christian character will hinder the advance of the gospel far more than the loss of religious liberty. And during this time, we have an opportunity for our character to be refined as a church. Thirdly, we have opportunities during this season for our mission to be defined. What is the church really to be about? What's our primary focus? We know through Jesus' teaching, the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, that we are to be about loving God, loving others, and making disciples. And we can do that regardless of who sits in the Oval Office. I'll read another quote from Trevin Wax about the church's mission. He says, "The church lives between the time of Christ's first and second comings, and therefore finds itself in the middle of an age to which it must not conform. The church's faithful presence in the world is a witness to another kingdom, which is why Christians are in the world and for the world, but not of the world." Brothers and sisters, our primary concern is the gospel of Jesus Christ. I pray that in the days ahead, God will strengthen his church in the U.S. by revealing misplaced trust, by refining our character, and by defining our mission. The gospel still is the power of God for salvation. Jesus' church still is God's vehicle for that gospel. Jesus still is reigning and will one day return. So in light of all this, let's not get distracted by civilian affairs, but let's be focused primarily on the mission of Jesus in the days ahead. God's best to you all.